Get out of the vehicle now!
May I ask why, officer?
You think that thing's gonna help you if I say you were resisting, Az?
Officer, I haven't done anything wrong.
The voice came through her window before she even saw his face.
License and registration, and keep your hands where I can see them.
Her pulse jumped. For a moment, the sound didn't match the quiet rhythm of the night. Then the flashlight hit her side mirror, blinding her reflection. The beam caught the edge of her skin first, brown under white light, then the outline of her fingers still trembling on the steering wheel.
Ma'am?
Yes, officer.
The voice came out calmer than it should have. The road was empty for miles, just a long strip of cracked asphalt somewhere between Sanford and nowhere. Pines on both sides, the smell of wet dirt and gasoline hanging in the fall air. The officer's shadow grew larger in her window. Behind him stands another officer. The first officer leaned down to her window, the strobe of red and blue lights slicing across his jaw. His accent was Carolina thick, his smile thin.
You got any idea why I pulled you over tonight?
Naomi blinked against the glare.
You were drifting. Little too far left in your lane. Have you been drinking, ma'am?
No, sir.
He tilted his head, pretending to study her.
Uh-huh.
No.
He chuckled softly, the sound small and mean.
Are you from around here?
Yes. Raleigh.
Fancy car for Raleigh.
His flashlight swept over her dashboard, her touchscreen flickering in the light.
Tesla, right?
Naomi didn't answer. He tapped the hood with his knuckles, a sharp sound that made her flinch. Mind stepping out so we can talk like folks? Behind him, the second officer shifted, silent but watching. Naomi stepped out slowly, one hand still visible, the other resting at her side. The ground felt uneven beneath her boots that Naomi's throat tightened. Like folks. She'd heard that tone before, the kind that came just before a threat wrapped in politeness. She reached for her window switch.
May I ask why, officer?
His smile didn't reach his eyes.
You may, but you're still stepping out.
Her hand trembled. She lowered the glass halfway.
Officer, I haven't done anything wrong.
He leaned in, and for the first time, she saw the shape of his name tag, Hollins. Sweat darkened his collar despite the cool night. His partner, Reese, she'd later learn, stood a few paces back, one hand on his belt, the other on his flashlight, face half hidden by the strobe. Naomi took a slow breath, steadying her voice.
Officer Hollins, my camera is recording.
That made him pause.
What camera?
The one right in front of you.
He looked. Just above the center of her dash, a small black lens sat beneath the touchscreen. Subtle, the size of a button. He laughed.
You girls and your gadgets. You think that thing's gonna help you if I say you were resisting?
Naomi didn't blink.
I think it's already helping me.
For a second, something flickered behind his smile.
Get out of the vehicle.
Her fingers slipped once on the handle before she opened the door. The air outside was cold, laced with the metallic smell of rain. Leaves scattered across the road, the cruiser lights washing the trees red, then blue, then red again, like the world couldn't make up its mind. The younger cop, Reese, shifted uneasily. Man, it's just a traffic. Shut up, Hollins muttered. Naomi looked at him, not pleading, just measuring. She didn't raise her voice. You don't have to talk to me like that. He turned on her fully.
Lady, you don't tell me how to do my job.
She didn't move. The camera inside her car was angled perfectly, catching both his face and hers through the open window. He took a step closer, close enough for her to smell the coffee on his breath. You think you're smart, huh? She swallowed hard. I think I'm safe. The words were quiet, but they landed heavy. He laughed again, the kind of laugh that didn't reach the eyes. Safe? He spat the word like it was a joke. Out here. Somewhere behind her, a night bird called once and fell silent. Naomi didn't look away. For a moment, neither did he. Then Hollins turned, motioning for Reese to circle the car. Let's see what the tech lady's hiding. Naomi froze. You don't have probable cause. He didn't even glance back. We'll see about that. Inside her car, unseen by either of them, the tiny black lens blinked twice, then glowed solid green. Live upload initiated, A soft, almost human voice said inside the car's speaker. Naomi exhaled. Somewhere in Raleigh, 65 miles away, a secure server began to record. The system she designed, her prototype, the one her startup hadn't even tested publicly yet, was broadcasting in real time. Not to a drive or a cloud, but to a distributed AI network that mirrored and re-uploaded footage across dozens of anonymous nodes. They could destroy her car or break her phone. But they couldn't erase what the truth had already become: data. Hollins turned back toward her. "You stand right there," he said. "We're going to take a look inside." Naomi's jaw tightened, but she didn't move. "Then you'll be on camera the whole time." He grinned without humor. "Good, I like an audience." The wind rose, scattering dead leaves across the road like sparks. The flashlight beam cut across her face again, blinding her. She blinked once, twice, and when her eyes adjusted, she caught Reese watching her from the passenger side, uncertain, his mouth drawn tight. Somewhere deep inside her car, a small tone sounded, one only she could recognize. The AI had detected raised voices, elevated heart rates, and keywords associated with aggression. It had started the backup transmission. Naomi's breathing slowed. She didn't know yet how the night would end, only that for the first time in her life, she wasn't entirely powerless. "Ma'am," Hollins barked. "Pop the trunk." She looked him dead in the eye. "I'd rather you call your supervisor." "Trunk now." Inside the car, the dashcam's lens tilted slightly upward, like an eye, watching the moment the world always tries to look away from. The strobe lights pulsed. The road stayed silent. And the truth, invisible, digital, alive, started climbing its way through the air. They circled like predators sizing a wounded deer. Hollins walked with the confidence of a man comfortable in his uniform. Reese moved with a jittery caution that put him somewhere between fear and obedience. The light from the cruiser strobed across Naomi's face, cutting the night into thin, metallic slices. Her palms were flat at her sides. Her breathing was even. "Pop the trunk," Hollins repeated, voice low and brittle. Naomi kept her gaze steady on his eyes the way surgeons learned to look at monitors. Without flinching, because flinching meant you gave the moment to chance. "You don't have probable cause," she said. "You can't just search my vehicle." Hollins laughed, a small, sour sound. He reached for the driver's door, the motion abrupt and possessive as a hand on an arm. "Ma'am, I'll do what I need to do." "Step back." She didn't step back. She took one slow step forward instead, close enough that the beam of his flashlight warmed her face. "If you're going to search my car, then you will do it in front of a supervisor. I have a right to remain present. I'll call it in." Reese shifted his weight. "We don't need no supervisor for a trunk check, Hollins. It's a routine." Hollins cut him off. "You want to play smart? Play smart." He jabbed a gloved finger at Naomi's chest. "Hands on the hood. Now." The threat in his tone made Naomi's jaw tighten. She didn't move her hands. Her voice stayed controlled. "You're making this worse. There's no reason." "Hush." Hollins leaned in so close Naomi could smell the coffee and the edge of stale breath. His hand darted toward the passenger side where later, Naomi would realize his aim was less about the bag and more about the black lens staring back at him. He wanted it gone. He wanted the evidence to be a hole where something inconvenient had existed. For that reason, she had built the camera with redundancy. 2 lenses, a low-profile mirror unit, a wide angle behind the rear view, and a micronode tucked into the headliner. All encrypted, all set to mirror stream across multiple anonymous nodes at the first sign of hostile intention. Incident mode was not theatrical. It was a last resort protocol that turned a personal recorder into a distributed witness. Because Hollins moved as if to grab at the dash, Naomi's thumb brushed the seam of the center console. A vibration answered, soft, like a sympathetic heartbeat. The camera's AI had recognized the raised voice and the proximity of an officer's hand near the lens. The system did 3 things in one flicker. It locked down local access, it initiated a live, encrypted upload, and it sent a pre-formatted emergency notice to Naomi's trusted contacts. 200 miles away, Maya Patel, lawyer, old friend, and occasional technical advisor, was at home in Raleigh finishing a chapter for the legal blog she wrote. Her laptop pinged. She glanced at the screen, saw the incoming alert labeled with Naomi's secure identifier and a tiny, pulsing thumbnail, live stream. Before she could think, she clicked. In a cabin office lined with narrow windows, Maya watched the feed bloom into life, Hollins leaning in, his shadow swallowing Naomi's profile, Reese walking the outer perimeter, the orange flowers on the passenger seat. The frame was steady, the audio clear. Naomi's voice came in like a thread. Maya's hand went to her phone. She dialed 2 numbers, the civilian oversight hotline she had on speed dial for precisely this kind of thing, and a number at the firm where she was a partner. Protocol had changed since she and Naomi had started working together. Now, an encrypted time-stamped recording could be the difference between suspicion and accountability. She hit send on a pre-written message to a coalition of civil rights attorneys who volunteered for immediate interventions. The message included Naomi's location coordinates, the live link, and a short note, active hostile stop, monitor and prepare IA referral. Back on the shoulder of that country road, Hollins ignored the hush of his radio and turned his attention to what he thought would be a quick win. He yanked the passenger door open in a show of authority. The smell of cake and chrysanthemums spilled out, a domestic intimacy that made his face harden into something close to contempt. "See," he said. "She's got the usual. We'll search and be on our way." "No," Naomi said. "Do it in front of a supervisor. Call it in. I will not consent to an unlawful search." Reese looked between the men, eyes darting to the green lights still glowing at the top of Naomi's dash. He swallowed. The certainty of his obedience had cracked. Hollins stepped toward Naomi and, in a move that should have been merely procedural, reached for the dashboard. The motion was wrong. Naomi's reflexes, tuned by nights of debugging and late-stage simulations, were micro-precise. She twisted her wrist, and with it, a hair-thin seam in the console slid aside, not to obscure, but to present a small, battery-operated voice that Hollins had not expected. "Alert! Authorized access attempt detected. Live stream active. Backup node engaged," said Naomi's voice, clipped but audible, amplified through the car's speaker. The crystalline words had no inflection but carried the weight of a courtroom. Hollins froze, eyes narrowing. "What the hell?" "Dispatch, check my recorder," Reese muttered into his radio, fingers fumbling with the microphone. But the words came late. 2 minutes had already been encrypted and pushed into a ring of anonymous nodes, snapshots with immutable timestamps. The cloud did not care for hollers or bravado. It recorded and stored with the humble obstinacy of code. "You're trying to intimidate me," Naomi said. Her voice had a different quality now, not pleading, not aggressive, but factual. "You're making a stop into an interrogation. I asked you to call a supervisor." Hollins' jaw worked. "You think you're clever, lady?" "I think I'm careful," Naomi corrected. "And I think you will be asked to explain your actions." The words fell like small stones in the night. Hollins' face flushed. Anger was the easiest resort for a man whose authority felt challenged. He stepped in close enough that Naomi could see the flecks of nicotine on his teeth. "You gonna talk back then? You gonna make this harder?" The tension tightened like a wire. Reese's hand hovered near his own holster as if the machine of training might overtake him. Naomi could feel the electricity in the night, like the moment before lightning hits a field. Then Hollins did the thing that would, in later hearings, be played in slow motion. He reached down and grabbed at the dash, intending to rip the black lens free. His fingers closed on plastic. Naomi's reaction was immediate and not theatrical. She pivoted her weight, twisted her shoulder, and shoved out with the angle of her hip, the small, precise movement taught in self-defense classes and practiced during moments of rehearsed panic. The motion upset Hollins' balance. He stumbled forward, one knee dipping into the gravel. Reese lunged to steady him. That stumble cost Hollins the composure of a man who believed in the invulnerability of his role. For a beat everything hung, Naomi's steady breathing, the glitter of chrysanthemum petals. Hollins' hand fanned out on the dash like a man who had just realized he had been seen. The camera's wide lens had framed it all. It had seen the roughness of his grip, the way his knuckles whitened. It recorded the second-hand look of panic in Reese's eyes. It captured the moment that later would not be contended over by memory, because the evidence existed as code beyond the reach of denials. Hollins snarled, pulling himself upright. "You little," he began. A car engine hummed in the distance. For Naomi, the sound was a small mercy. For Hollins, it was a countdown that might restore normalcy or fan the embers into flames. Reese, hands still on the cruiser, kept his gaze fixed on Naomi as if searching internally for permission to do right. From her phone, muted and snug in her back pocket, Naomi felt the hum of the push notification that told her Maya and the Oversight Coalition had opened the feed. In the space of less than 60 seconds, the stop that had been a private seat of power for two men had become a public, time-stamped event. Hollins' face transformed then, not into contrition, but calculation. He looked at Naomi with something like a promise and something like a threat. "You're gonna hear from me," he hissed. "You think you can broadcast us and get away with this?" Naomi met his stare. "I didn't start this," she said. "I'm documenting it." He stepped closer, and Reese, torn between loyalty and conscience, shifted again. For Naomi, the world narrowed to the camera's frame and the data ripples it cast into the night. Then, just as Hollins' shadow swallowed Naomi's profile, a new sound cut the theater of tension, the urgent, human sound of a voice speaking into a radio. "Unit 3, we have an active file coming through Oversight. Hold position. Supervisor en route." Hollins' head snapped toward the cruiser. His mouth opened. The command from the radio hung in the air like a sentence that could not be unsaid. He looked back at Naomi. For the first time since he'd leaned in, his eyes were not entirely fearless. Naomi let out a breath she hadn't known she'd been containing. Her body loosened fractionally. She didn't know who on the other end of that network had seen the beginning of their stop. A legal aid lawyer in Durham, an old professor at the university, a volunteer monitor, and she didn't need to. What she did know was the odd consolation of numbers. When code and witnesses converge, memory loses its monopoly. Lies have to find new ground. Reese glanced at Hollins, then at Naomi. He looked smaller, like someone who had been handed a choice he'd never been taught to articulate. "Maybe we should wait," he said. Hollins' mouth tightened. Outside, the trees breathed in the strobe. Somewhere far away, servers allocated anonymous space, and the first layer of uploaded footage burrowed into an archival ledger with a seal, immutable, dated, and ready. The night had tilted on its axis. The direction of power, once a thin, comfortable line, had thickened into something uncertain. And as the cruiser lights throbbed and the whispers of the oversight node crawled through the ether, Naomi stood with her hands visible, the color of chrysanthemums at her feet, and the knowledge that the smallest, quietest technology could not only witness injustice, it could call it to account. The road waited, the hush layering itself over the new geometry of the stop. Hollins stared at Naomi for one last heartbeat, and then, for reasons that would later be parsed and replayed and litigated, he stepped back. "All right," he said, voice brittle. "Stay right there." But the camera kept recording, and the cloud kept listening. For a few seconds after the radio call crackled through the cruiser, no one breathed. Then the air itself seemed to change. Not the kind of quiet that means safety, the other kind, where danger doesn't know which direction to go next. Hollins stood there, chest heaving, hands still half raised toward Naomi's car. The words, "Supervisor en route," replayed in the static behind his eyes like a bad signal he couldn't block out. Naomi didn't move. Her breath left her body in small, even clouds that the headlights caught and turned silver. The AI sensor light kept pulsing a slow, steady rhythm from her dashboard, blue, pause, blue again, like a heart refusing to stop. What the hell was that? Hollins muttered. Reese swallowed hard. They heard the feed. Somebody must have. Somebody what? Hollins snapped, but his voice cracked halfway through, and the authority he'd been clinging to bled out between the syllables. Naomi spoke before he could recover. "That was your dispatch," she said quietly. "They know you're being recorded." Her tone wasn't mocking. It was factual, like reading a vital sign out loud. The flashlight wavered in Hollins's hand. Behind him, The night felt alive with unseen eyes. Every pine tree, every shadow could have been another lens. It was the strange terror of the modern world, not knowing where the watching stopped. Far up the road, the low thrum of an engine grew louder, slow, deliberate, official. A second cruiser. The one thing Hollins hadn't wanted. Naomi's shoulders relaxed by an inch, but her pulse stayed high. The fall wind pressed against her coat, carrying the smell of rain and burnt leaves. The chrysanthemums she'd brought for her mother's birthday lay crushed near the tire, bright orange petals scattered like embers. The new cruiser stopped behind the first, headlights washing the road in pale gold. The red and blue strobes dimmed, replaced by the calmer glare of a spotlight. The door opened. Sergeant Valerie Grant stepped out. Tall, steady, 40-something with the kind of composure that made noise go quiet on its own. The silver of her badge caught the light like a blade. "Evening," she called out. "What's going on here?" No one answered immediately. Even the radio hissed in place of a voice. Hollins cleared his throat, forcing casual. "Routine stop, Sarge." Driver was acting jumpy. "Thought we'd check her out." Grant's gaze slid past him, to Naomi, who stood motionless beside the open car door, both hands visible, face illuminated by her own dashboard glow. Grant's eyes softened just slightly, then sharpened again as she looked back at Hollins. "You thought you'd check her out? And in the process she gestured toward the hood, decided to manhandle the vehicle?" Reese shifted. "Ma'am, we just—" Grant cut him off with a hand. "Save it. Both of you step back from the car." The command landed like a door shutting. Naomi's throat tightened. For the first time in 20 minutes, she could exhale without measuring it. Grant walked up to her, voice lower now. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" "No, Sergeant." Naomi's voice trembled on the first syllable, steadied on the next. "Just tired. And recording." Grant's mouth twitched. "Good. Keep it rolling. Tell me what happened." Naomi did. Not everything, just the sequence. Each detail came out clipped and careful. The stop, the questions, the tone, the hand on the dash, the order to open her trunk. Grant didn't interrupt once. When Naomi finished, the sergeant looked over her shoulder at Hollins. "Is that about right, officer?" Hollins bristled. "She's exaggerating." "Good thing we'll have footage to compare." Grant's eyes flicked to the dash cam, then to Reese's chest camera. "You had yours on, didn't you?" Reese hesitated. "Yes, ma'am. But hers was—" "Live?" Naomi said. "Uploaded already." The word uploaded landed heavier than it should have. Hollins blinked like he hadn't fully understood it. Grant, however, did. She nodded once, half admiration, half grim understanding. "You built that yourself?" she asked. "Yes," Naomi said. "I design AI for a living. It detects tone, physical stress, keyword triggers. It started sending the moment it sensed conflict." Grant studied her face for a long moment. "Smart," she said quietly. Then, to Hollins, "You should start writing your report in your head right now. You'll need it." Reese opened his mouth, closed it again. The sound that came out was small. "Ma'am, I told him we should." Grant raised a hand. "You'll both give statements." Her gaze turned toward Naomi again. "You want to press a complaint?" Naomi shook her head slowly. "Not tonight. I just want to go home. Then we'll make sure you get there." Grant stepped back, speaking into her shoulder mic. Her voice was steady, procedural, but Naomi could hear the edge of something like anger woven beneath it, the quiet, practiced kind that comes from having seen this story too many times before. While the call went through, Naomi leaned against her car, eyes on the crushed flowers near the tire. She wanted to pick them up, but her legs still felt too heavy. The glow from her dash spilled out onto the road like a soft lantern, casting everything in blue light. It was the same color as the veins on her hands, the same color, she thought, as truth, faint until it's backlit. Hollins turned toward her suddenly, voice low. "You think this is over?" The words came out half whisper, half warning. Naomi didn't answer. She didn't have to. Because at that very moment, a vibration ran through her phone. A new alert. Feed verified. External observers connected. Live review in progress. Dozens of icons flickered across the edge of her screen. Small anonymous watchers from the Oversight Coalition, journalists, attorneys, maybe strangers who just happened to follow the network of accountability feeds that bloomed like mycelium beneath the surface of the web. The video had already reached them. The truth had gone public before Hollins even finished his sentence. A minute later, Sergeant Grant's radio hissed again. She frowned, listening. "Copy that," she said, then looked directly at Hollins. "State Attorney's liaison wants both of you in for preliminary interviews tonight." IA flagged the incident. Reese's face drained of color. "Tonight." "Tonight," Grant said. She turned to Naomi one last time. "You okay to drive, Miss Carter?" "Yes," Naomi said softly. "I'm okay." Grant gave her a small nod. "Then go home. We'll handle the rest." Naomi got into her car. The seat creaked beneath her, familiar and grounding. The AI's voice was gentle, almost human. Upload complete. Verification achieved. External distribution initiated. Outside, Grant was already talking into her radio, her figure half-lit by the cruiser beam. Hollins stood behind her, motionless, caught between defiance and dread. Naomi looked at him through the glass one last time. There was no triumph in her gaze, just exhaustion. Then she said, more to herself than to anyone, "The truth always uploads faster than lies." She pulled onto the road, the tires crunching over gravel, carrying her away from the strobing lights and into the darker stretch where only her headlights led the way. In Raleigh, Maya's phone buzzed once. The upload had synced to every node it needed to, lawyers, oversight boards, and within the hour, a journalist with a name that made police departments nervous. The system Naomi had built was never meant for revenge. It was meant for permanence. The world woke before Naomi did. By the time she opened her eyes, the noise had already begun, not the sound of traffic or birds or the hum of city mornings, but something sharper, electric, impossible to mute. Phones buzzing. Voices overlapping. News anchors saying her name. Her living room television was already on. She didn't remember turning it on. The volume low, the image looping, a freeze frame of her face caught in the glow of flashing police lights. "This is the moment," the reporter was saying, where software engineer Naomi Carter's custom-built dash camera captured what's now being called one of the most important pieces of footage in modern policing. Naomi stood there, still in yesterday's clothes, her coffee untouched, watching herself on the screen, motionless, expression unreadable, while the officer's hand hovered near her dashboard. The crawl beneath the video read, "AI camera uploads police misconduct in real time. Officers suspended pending investigation." Her stomach turned. She hadn't expected this. Not the scale, not the speed. Her invention had done exactly what it was built to do. Tell the truth. But truth, it turned out, didn't whisper. It roared. She muted the TV and stood there listening to the echo of her own heartbeat. Outside, through her apartment window, the city felt louder than usual. People talking on corners, phones held up, the hum of a world newly aware. Then came the knock. 3 measured raps, firm, official, and patient. When she opened the door, Sergeant Valerie Grant stood there again, her face drawn but steady, uniform crisp despite the fatigue around her eyes. "Ms. Carter," she said, "I figured you'd want to hear it from me before the rest of the world tells you their version." Naomi stepped aside to let her in. Grant looked around, noticing the muted television. "You've seen it?" Naomi nodded. "I didn't share it. It shared itself." Grant half smiled. "That's the thing about truth. Once it finds daylight, it doesn't ask who hit the switch." She set her cap on the counter. Internal Affairs opened a formal inquiry at 6 a.m. Both officers are on unpaid leave. The DA's office wants a meeting about your AI system. They're calling it WitnessNet now. Naomi frowned slightly. "That's not what I called it." "I know, but people name what they can't control." Grant leaned on the back of the couch, her voice softening. "You did something remarkable. Dangerous, but remarkable. You gave everyone the one thing this country keeps losing, proof that doesn't disappear." Naomi sank onto the armchair. "I didn't mean for it to be political." Everything's political once it scares someone, Grant said. For a moment, the room filled only with the muffled sound of sirens somewhere far away. Neither of them spoke. Then Naomi's phone buzzed on the table. One new message, not from Maya this time, but from an unknown number. She almost ignored it until she saw the preview. "We saw what you did. Keep it up." The second followed seconds later. "You saved lives you'll never meet." She looked up at Grant. "People are watching." "They will for a while," Grant said. "But they'll move on unless you don't let them." Naomi frowned. "What do you mean?" Grant's eyes met hers. "You have a voice now. Use it. Don't just survive this, define it." The words sank deep. Naomi thought of the server racks humming quietly in some data center, her code scattered across anonymous nodes, alive and incorruptible. She thought of every time she'd swallowed fear and called it restraint. Now, the truth had spoken louder than any scream could. 2 weeks later, the hearing room was colder than she'd expected. Rows of cameras lined the back wall. Local news, national outlets, independent journalists. The city seal glinted on the podium at the front. Naomi sat beside her attorney, hands folded in her lap. Sergeant Grant was there too, in uniform, seated in the front row. When the board chair called her name, Naomi stood and faced the room. "Ms. Carter," the chair began, "you've become the center of a national conversation. Before we proceed with the disciplinary findings against the officers involved, would you care to make a statement?" Naomi hesitated, then stepped toward the microphone. The flash of cameras made her blink, but she didn't flinch. "I didn't build my camera to expose anyone," she said. "I built it to protect myself, because sometimes silence is survival. But what happened that night showed me something I didn't expect. Truth isn't just defense. It's a light. And if you leave it running long enough, it shows everything. The good, the bad, and the people still brave enough to stand in it." The room was quiet, save for the soft whir of the cameras recording every word. "I didn't post the footage," she continued. "It uploaded itself, because that's what it was designed to do, to make sure the story doesn't change before sunrise." Her eyes flicked to Hollins, sitting at the table beside his lawyer, shoulders slumped, eyes down. "I wish I could say I hate you," she said quietly. "But I don't. I just hope, one day, you understand what it feels like to be seen for the wrong reason." She stepped back. The chair nodded once, visibly moved. The verdict came fast, procedural language dressed as justice. Termination of employment, public apology, mandatory policy reform. It was clean, legal, efficient. But it wasn't the paper that made the moment real. It was the stillness afterward. The kind of silence that felt like a country exhaling. Outside, on the courthouse steps, the air was colder, brighter. Reporters swarmed, microphones out. Questions flew like gnats. "Naomi, how does it feel? Do you think your AI changed policing forever? What's next for WitnessNet?" She smiled faintly, answering only one of them. "I think the truth is faster than we are," she said. "And that's how it should be." Grant, beside her, whispered, "You handled that better than half the chiefs I've met." Naomi laughed softly. "I just told the truth." "Yeah," Grant said. "And you built a way to make it louder." They parted ways on the courthouse steps. The city hummed around them, car horns, the rustle of banners, voices rising and fading. Somewhere, a kid passed on a bike, shouting, "That's her. The lady from the video." Naomi smiled to herself. When she reached her car, she paused before getting in. The dashboard light blinked once, blue, alive, waiting. She pressed her hand against it. "Ava," she said quietly, "record." The AI's voice answered, soft and calm. "Recording. For the record, justice served." Naomi smiled, starting the engine. The tires rolled slow against the pavement as she whispered to herself, "Let's go tell the next story." And with that, she drove off, the glow of the dash reflecting in her eyes, the sound of servers humming faintly somewhere in the distance, the song of a truth that never sleeps.